Welcome to This Week in High School Sports. Teresa Whipple here with Steve Willits, and happy spring.
Happy spring. It's not quite spring yet, but I guess it's spring
know.
sports season, so
It is.
it is happy spring, I
And
guess.
cold and rain and wind and weird weather, and it's typical. Anyway,
Yeah.
moving
great,
on.
Great baseball, softball,
Yeah.
golf, tennis weather, right?
That's right. That's right. Well, and we want to thank Red Onion Burgers for sponsoring our show. We appreciate your support, Sean Richards. And, before we get to the high school portion, we had an amazing performance turned in by one of our alumni.
We sure did.
Yes, we did.
The first perfect game thrown in NCAA Division I softball this season throughout the entire nation.
Wow.
Took place over at Seattle U Friday morning, and we've got a picture, Alyssa Rubel, a name that we know very well around here. We
Yes,
had
we
a
do.
chance to watch Alyssa pitch over at Meadowdale for quite a few years. I think she was even the Seattle Times Player of the Year one year.
Mm-hmm.
We saw her pitch a great game down in Lacey, a game that I think we broadcasted, third place game.
Yeah.
She shut out University High School back in Spokane. That was back in 2013. Boy, how time flies.
Yeah.
But on Friday, she threw a perfect game against the University of South Dakota. Again, only the third time in school history that they've had a perfect game. And a big day for Alyssa. Only 41 pitches needed to throw 5 perfect innings. And the other thing that was kind of cool about this story, another name that we know very well, Maddie Christensen. And we've got a picture of Maddie we're going to put up on the screen. Maddie, who was a Mountlake Terrace alum and who she's been very tight with Alyssa over the years. They grew up playing softball together, and a lot of cool stories that we've heard from them in the past. Maddie drove in 3 runs in that game, so she was the leading hitter. So a great day over there at Seattle University on Friday, and congratulations to those two.
Very cool. And the final score was 8-0, right?
8-0 was the final, yeah.
Very nice. Okay. Well, let's get on to what's happening here in town.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's spring sports season. I was going to say right around the corner, but I guess it's already here.
It's here.
Yeah, we had jamborees going on over the weekend for softball and baseball, and everybody else is getting ready to start competing this week. We brought in one of the coaches, Andrew Waters, who has been over at Mountlake Terrace High School in his 18th year as the head coach, 20 years if you count the 2 that he was an assistant coach. He also played at Mountlake Terrace back in the late 80s and early 90s. And we brought Andrew into the studio to talk about his own team and also just things around the league in general. Here's the interview we did with Andrew. Spring sports season is here. That means baseball time. And with us right now, the head baseball coach for Mountlake Terrace High School in his 18th year as the head coach, 20th year in the program, and an alum, I might add, Andrew Waters. Coach, when you look outside and you see this weather and the rain and how cold it is right now, hard to believe we're already talking baseball, and yet over the weekend you played in a jamboree.
Yeah, amazingly. It wasn't necessarily very fun, but it was, I guess, productive. And we do have new turf on our field, and so it was a good test for how we're going to be able to withstand the weather, and we got it in.
What is it like when you're getting players prepared in the month of March, especially early March in the Pacific Northwest? You do have to deal with the elements. Certainly, I'm sure you're worried about pulling muscles and other things like that. How, in fact, do you go about preparing for the season when you know that it's this cold out?
We have to be careful. We have to make sure that our players get their bodies warmed up and that they keep their bodies warmed up. And, you want to watch the arms and the pitchers. You want to make sure that they're nice and warm before they're throwing. You don't want anyone to throw cold. And you just got to monitor things, and you got to monitor the work of the players and make sure that they're doing the right things to get themselves ready and not trying to do things in the freezing cold when they're not.
Right. Now, we're not going to talk about individual players yet because we're going to hold that for a later segment here. But the Jamboree was 2 3-inning games. You played Arlington and you played Meadowdale. How much stock do you put in these games as far as assessing players and what they are or are not doing? And how did you feel about the Jamboree yesterday?
The Jamboree, the morning game was tough to judge. The weather was really bad. The afternoon game went much better for us, but it's a part of the process. It's an exhibition. There's a lot of competition within every team at this point. I'm sure for Meadowdale and Arlington as well. And so it's an opportunity to put them out there, teammates against teammates, and give everyone opportunities and see how they do with them. And so we're no different. And I had 18 players that suited up for the Jamboree yesterday, and they all got at-bats, and they all got to play, and they all got to show their things. And So it's fun. It's a fun opportunity that as the season goes, you get less and less of that kind of an opportunity.
Sure. Well, let's talk about some of those players a little bit. Now, this is a team that you've had a lot of success over the last 2 decades. Sounds kind of funny to say that, but it's been a while now. Numerous trips to state tournaments and winning district championships. Last year, a little bit rougher, a 7-win season. And as we start to kind of look forward to this season, you have 3 captains. Let's kind of go through them first. We're going to put up a picture right now of Adam Lorraine, one of your captains. Tell me a little bit about Adam, what he brings to this team.
Yeah, Adam is going to be a third-year starter this year. He's a veteran. He is the leader of our outfield and kind of the field general, like our safety. He'll be in center field. He is our leadoff hitter. He's a very intelligent player. He's going to be the guy that's going to get the offense going, and he's going to make great plays on defense. He's going to be vocal. So he's a great part of our team. And so he's going to have a great year. I know he is.
Yeah, and we see Adam at the basketball games leading the Rowdy Rooters quite often. So
Yeah.
we know he's vocal, so we'll see what he can do on the baseball field this year. Second picture we want to put up, Carson Dallas. Tell us a little bit about Carson.
Carson's a great athlete. He hit a home run yesterday in Jamboree after having a rough start to the Jamboree, but he's going to help us defensively. He's one of our better versatile players. He can play outfield, he can play first base, and we'll see where the pitching goes for him. But he's our cleanup hitter, and he's going to drive in a lot of runs for us, and he's also a great base runner, which is kind of shows the athleticism and the tools that he has. So he's going to have a good year.
You mentioned driving in a lot of runs. Another guy who can drive in some runs is this guy, Jared Maxfield, another player who's not a stranger to the Mountlake Terrace baseball program. Tell us about Jared.
Jared's special, and Jared's going to go to Bellevue College next year.
That worked out pretty well for Dominic DeMero, by the way.
Yes,
so
and
that's
so
a good place
Jared's
to
going
start.
right behind him, and Jared is one of the better hitters in the area. I have no question about that, and he's going to do it again for us. In that he's very special. He's a special hitter, and as a pitcher, he's our number 1 guy, and he's a leader of the team, and so it's going to be fun to watch him play this year. He's a guy I don't need to say too much to because he's very intelligent and he knows what his business is, and he's going to do it. So I'm excited for him. He's going to have a great year, and I think he brings a toughness and a personality to our team that's really important. So I can't wait to see him get going here.
Sounds like a very strong trio as captains.
Yeah.
How about the rest of the guys? Tell us a little bit about the field players.
Yeah, we have a lot of turnover, especially in our infield. And so Kendall Yackley, Jaden would be
Jaden's
his
younger brother.
Kendall is taking over at shortstop, and he's a leader, and he's going to be great there. And over at third, Matthew Johnson, who's also going to help us with pitching. And boy, he made a couple great plays yesterday, and he's a great hitter, and I think he's going to have a great year. And another guy worth mentioning is Max Coleman, who played outfield for us last year as a sophomore quite a bit, and this year I see him kind of being a utility guy for us and playing a lot of different positions because he's that kind of an athlete. So those are 3 guys that I'm really excited about. And Dan Bingaman is a junior catcher now, and he's ready to take over after we lost Nolan Takea to graduation. And then we have a whole, without naming the whole team,
Sure.
we have a lot of competition within the team and a lot of depth. And there's a lot of guys that could step up and really fill in the gaps. And I think we have a really strong defensive team, and I think that we're going to score some runs. So those are going to be our strengths for sure.
Now, you've already mentioned a few of the players who cross over and pitch as well. Anybody else that we should be looking at from the pitching side of things?
I think Jared leads the way, and I think Matthew Johnson's going to help us a lot. And Tanner Bowe is a left-handed pitcher that I've been impressed with here early on, who's a junior, and he's gonna get his innings. And after that, we have a trio of sophomores that we'll see how the season plays out for them. We need to make sure they get their innings every week, but they've been impressive to me as we go, and so I really got my eyes open seeing if any of them can help. And one of them is Jesse Martineau and Brett Sears and Dylan Gordon, and they're all a tall trio of sophomores, and so I'm excited about our depth in that area at the varsity level, and then we'll see how the season plays on.
And certainly within rosters, a little competition never hurts, and that's what the early part of the season is for. So we will see how that plays out. Looking at the league a little bit, we're still divided into North-South divisions. Obviously, we focus a lot on this show on the Edmonds School District teams. Certainly a lot of talent coming back from all the teams in the area.
Yeah.
Who should we be keeping an eye on in the league as far as teams?
I think that in the South Division, I think it's a very even group, and Shorewood's always good, and Shorewood always has a lot of depth in their program, and Edmonds-Woodway will be good with a lot of solid returners. Meadowdale, same thing, and Linwood may have two of the most talented pitchers, and so, you know, when you have that, you got to take them seriously, and they have a great shortstop at Linwood. And
Skylar McMahon, who's going to Oregon State, I believe, next year.
Yeah, and you know, I think Shorecrest is going to surprise some people. Last year they showed that they have a guy that's really good on the mound, and I think that they're ready to step up and surprise some people and win some games as well. So that's a really tough South Division. And I think every game is going to be a good ball game in our division. I don't think there's going to be anything less than good baseball played in any of those games.
And looking at the league as a whole, too, a little change of format this year, and it's going to require maybe a little more traveling. Last year, the teams, again, were divided into North Division, South Division. You played a 3-game series against each of the teams in your own division, so you might play a Linwood on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and then the next week you might be playing Meadowdale Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. Now, you're only playing each team twice in your division, and then you play the North teams once. So for the most part, teams in your division Tuesday, Wednesday, and then a Friday trip up north. Do you like the new format?
I love it.
Okay, why so?
It's an opportunity. In our case, for our schedule this year, we have a game scheduled to go play Everett at Everett Memorial, and we have a trip to Oak Harbor, and we're going to go play Snohomish up at Snohomish, and those are trips that we've been kind of missing out on by keeping all our games local. And so it's going to help us. We get a little experience of traveling a little bit, and we want to go play those guys, and I think they want to play us, and you know, it just it gives more variety to the schedule, and I think it gives the players a better experience to play some different games and to experience those games. We still maintain a 2-game series with our South rivals, and that's going to be very competitive and fun. And so I'm looking forward to it. I think the coaches, you know, had their say in that, and the league the ADs listened and went with it. So it's going to be a fun change to the format.
Does it change pitching rotations? Do you maybe throw out a guy on a Friday you normally wouldn't have otherwise, or vice versa? Do you? I mean, obviously, those games still count in the standings, but maybe not as much in terms of if you're trying to, a lot of the teams are trying to jockey for position within their own division.
I think every coach would answer that differently. I'm sure that there's plenty of guys that are going to throw all their best on Tuesday and Wednesday and beat your rivals and make a difference in the standings that way. But, you know, quite honestly, all those games count. And, you know, from my standpoint, we're going to put our best pitchers out there each day that we play, and we're going to rotate them how it works best for our team. So I don't think from my standpoint, it's not going to have a huge effect, but for others, they might have a different answer.
And then what's a little unusual this year, or not a little, it's very unusual, and it seems like I feel like a broken record. I've been asking this question to Mountlake Terrace coaches and athletes ever since the school year started, but now it's my chance to ask you. Mountlake Terrace is now a 2A school playing in a 3A conference. In years past, you were always kind of jockeying with teams in your division for placement as far as what it meant to you in terms of getting into the 3A district playoffs. You now head in a different direction once the season ends. It's all based on a computer index rating, essentially, to determine if you make the 2A playoffs and where you're seated, does it change things? Is it a little bit awkward knowing that you're not going to be watching the 3A standings quite as closely as you might have in the past?
Maybe a little bit, because last year, as an example, we had some serious games that were important to our season very early in the season, which in baseball, that's not a very good schedule, and that's not really the ultimate thing. You don't want to have games that determine your season happening in the first 5 games of the season. And that's really the schedule we've had for a couple years now, and that's really tough on your pitching and just really tough on, it puts pressure on your team and your coaches to make decisions that you don't want to make as far as pressing your pitching to go as far as they can. It's a little more relaxed now. We can build the team the right way, and we can just play the schedule as it comes to us. And really, we're just going to go out and try to win every game and do the best we can. And we should be in that playoff mix, so I'm not really concerned about it. And we just know that the better we do, the better that seed will be, and who knows how it'll fall. But in our case, I'm excited about the 2A tournament. It's something different for our kids and our program. And it's going to be a really good tournament. The teams in baseball involved from up north have done really well. If you just look at last year, and Cedar Crest and I think Linden, and you got Archbishop Murphy up there, and Burlington Edison and Seaholm, and these are traditionally, Cedar Woolley, Anacortes, traditionally really good baseball schools with a lot of coaches up there that have been around a long time and know what they're doing. And so it's going to be a challenge for us to go into their tournament and try to earn our spot. So it's going to be fun.
So smaller schools, but it certainly doesn't necessarily mean it equates to lesser competition. It's going to be tough.
It'll be tough.
And then we're looking ahead at your schedule. You're scheduled to be at Mariner on Tuesday, weather permitting. And then you've got home games with Glacier Peak on Friday, Monroe next Tuesday. And then on March 22nd, you kick off the regular season with a game against Shorecrest. You guys ready to go? Is this
We're getting there.
Team's getting there very quickly? They're going to have to, right?
We're getting there. So we're going to have a good practice tomorrow on Monday, and then we got Mariner, so we'll be ready for that.
So here we go. Andrew Waters is coming up on his 18th season at the helm, 20th season overall at his alma mater. And Andrew, best of luck to you.
All right, thank you, Steve.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Now, Steve, I heard a rumor that you and Andrew actually go way back, like Little League.
We very good. You did your homework.
Yes.
Andrew and I did, in fact, play Little League together. We've known each other since we were, I think, in the 2nd or 3rd grade, and graduated from high school together over at Mountlake Terrace. So it's very meaningful for me when I get a chance to bring Andrew into studio. He's done a phenomenal job over at Mountlake Terrace, and proud of what he's able to accomplish with those kids, not only in producing results on the field, but what he's done with those young men off the field.
Right, and that's something that I really appreciate about what we do here is there are so many long-term community connections to the people who report on the sports, who coach the teams. I mean, it's just, it's really a community effort, and it's great to be part of it.
Yeah, and absolutely. And a big event took place over the weekend also for Mountlake Terrace High School. They had their Sports and Music Booster Club Gala, an event that raised $52,000 for those 2 clubs. And this was over at Linwood Convention Center. I wasn't planning on mentioning this, but you segued me into it beautifully, because 2 of the young men who were over there helping at that event were Jesse Prothero and Michael Hunt, who are both alumni of the Mountlake Terrace baseball team, both now playing baseball over at Jamestown University in North Dakota. They were on their spring break, and they both volunteered to help at that event, and they did a fantastic job all night. So we really got to see that baseball community step up, and just like I said, it's young men who, when they leave the program, they still want to come back and give, and it's been pretty neat to be a part of that.
That's great. Now, speaking of community involvement and people who are in the community, your next guest, actually, I can speak personally because he writes sports for MLT News, but he's been in Mountlake Terrace for many years. Both of his daughters went to the high school, and you guys talked some sports, didn't you?
Yeah, Doug Petrowski, who does an amazing job writing articles for you at MLTnews.com, and also occasionally writes articles for Linwood Today and My Edmonds News as well. Doug really has his finger on the pulse of everything that's happening within the, not only sports, but really the Mountlake Terrace community.
Yeah.
And we thought we'd bring Doug in and have him give us a little preview. Again, sports, the seasons are underway, a lot of practicing going on right now, but not too much in terms of what we're able to report on in terms of results yet. Everything's just really getting going. So Doug's been talking to some of the coaches, working on preview articles. We thought we'd bring him in and just kind of talk a little bit about some of these teams and what the upcoming seasons could potentially look like. And here's Doug Petrowski. Spring sports just around the corner, and with us right now from MLT News, gentleman who covers numerous sports, not only for Mountlake Terrace High School, but a little bit of everybody in the Edmonds School District, but primarily Mountlake Terrace. Doug Petrowski. Doug, a busy time of year for you. Spring, not exactly a downtime for sports. There's so much going on right now. And I guess we'll start off with one of the preview articles you wrote earlier this week. The Mountlake Terrace boys soccer team that made the state tournament last year for the first time in 22 years. And they had some youth last year. Big expectations for them.
Yeah, boys soccer is going to be one of the strong points for Mountlake Terrace High School this spring for sports fans of Hawk sports. Coach George Dermichis is excited about what's going to be happening this season with his squad. Can't talk enough about his players. And I think the season's going to go really well for them. There's always strong competition, Wesco League in boys soccer. So we'll see how it goes.
And we've got a few pictures we want to share here too. The first one I'm going to put up, the Bulgarian Bulldozer. Just learned that was the nickname earlier this week. Thank you, Twitter. Talk a little bit about Bobby Stoyanov, who we had a chance to watch and cover last year.
Yeah, a junior that Coach George loves, very strong up front, and his nickname matches him perfectly because he has got that strong will toward him. So it'll be fun to see him. He and his fellow forward, Gavin Scott, are going to be formidable up front. They scored a lot of goals last year, and I think Coach George is expecting the same this year.
And we've got a couple more pictures here, one of which is coming up right now. Malik
Kibar.
Yeah, I should have. He was playing football a little bit as a kicker last year.
Yeah, sorry, Malik,
learned the
if we messed up
pronunciation a
your
little
name.
better, but yeah. And so another player that they're relying on heavily. And then we've got two more gentlemen we want to put up on the screen right now. That's Diego Kiniga and Max Jackson. Thank you, Max. A much easier name to pronounce. So again, a soccer team with high expectations, lofty goals this year. And I know, is there anybody else in particular we should be mentioning?
Yeah, Malik's going to be joined on the back line by a couple of real strong senior center backs. Sam Polval is a big center back. Will be counted on a lot for his defensive presence, and teammate Colin Cockbane also will be a center back on the defense. Very strong defense, a lot of senior leadership back there. And then behind them, the last defense, Gerardo Ruiz. Yes. Coach George is very excited about his goalkeeper. Says he's very strong, very smart, small in stature, but very quick, and is really the leader back there in that back defense, as typically is the case for a soccer defense. The goalkeeper kind of runs the show back there.
Well, especially in a sport like soccer where goals are at a premium sometimes. You don't want to give up any more than you have to.
Yes, and Gerardo proved himself last year in district playoffs. They had 3 shutouts before they got into the state tournament, and where they ended up facing Mercer Island, state runner-up. Very strong team. But yeah, their run in the districts last year was very impressive, and the defense led the way.
Yeah, and again, a young team last year that got valuable experience playing in those district tournaments, as well as the game against Mercer Island. Another team that I'm very excited to see this year, and really it's a league I can't wait to watch, the girls softball team. Mountlake Terrace, a very young team last year, and we'll talk about them in a moment, but a league was very stiff in terms of competition, and it just got a little more difficult, right?
Yes, Wesco softball has been strong forever. Primarily because of the presence of Meadowdale. Meadowdale, 3A state champions last year.
And young.
I was looking at their home record over the last 5 years, 47-3 at home.
Yeah.
47-3, quite impressive. Now, they lost 1 at home last year to Mountlake Terrace. It was a 1-run, exciting game. Mountlake Terrace will have their hands full. Also, in addition, Wesco League's the 3A division is getting a new participant, and that's Snohomish. Snohomish has been competing at 4A level. They're going to be 3A this year. Snohomish was the 4A champions, state champions last year.
So 2 state champions from last season in the same conference. Mountlake Terrace certainly having to run that gamut. And then Edmonds-Woodway returns quite a few players. Linwood with Maddie Morgan, who is going to the University of Alabama on a softball scholarship last year. Mountlake Terrace, like I said, they're in for a tough season, but they've got a lot of great players. And I know you're working on a softball preview article that's coming out this week. Who are some of the girls we'll be watching there?
Yeah, softball at Mountlake Terrace is on the rise. And you start with the coach, Shannon Rasmussen. This will be her 5th season. She's really taken the team to great heights. And they're ready to take the next step to state. They've been to state once under her leadership. I think they're ready to go there again this year. She's got some advantages. She is a math teacher down at Briar Terrace Middle School and coaches softball down there in the fall. They do girls softball in the fall down there and coaches. So she's able to prepare players to move up to the high school level and eventually varsity level. Now, some of those players are making great leaps already. They've got a couple of freshmen coming up that are going to be parts of the varsity team this year. And there'll be names that you'll be familiar with. Jamie Bingaman, brother, plays baseball. Jana Maxfield, younger sister of Jared Maxfield. So there's some sports families there. They'll be parts of the varsity team. Beyond that, though, you've got a couple seniors that'll be leading them. Gabby Calhoun, who's been a 4-year starter with Terrace. She'll be pitching. She'll be playing second base. She'll be sharing those duties with Kara Doan, pitching and second base also. They're their 2 senior captains, and they'll be leading the team.
And then we've got some juniors also that we need to keep an eye on. Obviously, we know a lot about Sammy Ruiz. We know we've watched Jazz Zink over the years. A lot of talent, and like you mentioned, those freshmen. I know Shannon was ranting about them and raving about them last year in terms of what she thought they were going to bring to the team as freshmen this year, and now that time has come, so we will watch, and should be a fun season. We go to track and field now. I guess the big storyline here is that Shanae Okoronkwo finally graduates, one of the most decorated athletes maybe in Snohomish County history, numerous state championships as she takes her talents to the University of Wisconsin. But this is still a track and field team that's very talented.
Yeah, I haven't looked lately to see how Shanae's doing up there. I think the NCAA indoor track championships were this past weekend, so I'll have to look that up and see how she did. I know she's been training primarily for the outdoor season, though.
Okay.
I saw her over Christmas break. But track and field, yes, track and field. Russ Vincent's coach there, been the coach there for 13 years, and he's got another strong squad this year. The girls finished 3rd in state last year. They've lost some with Shanae gone. They've lost some points that they could earn there at the state tournament. But you've got some returners that have a chance to get back to state. Jessica Ong has been a state competitor. She'll be running in the 800 meters. Catherine Gustafson, she'll be running distances. She had a rough cross-country season, primarily due to injuries. I think she wants to come out and prove something this spring. And then senior Sophia Nelson also ran on the cross-country team last fall. She'll be competing in the triple jump. And she's been showing great strides in
No pun intended, right?
No pun intended.
Okay.
There. Sandra Hart is also one to watch. She's a junior, and she'll be in the 400 meters, and she'll be one to watch also.
And then a lot of really good throwers for this Mountlake Terrace team.
Yeah, when we switch over to the boys, you've got some young throwers that have impressed Coach Russ. Brandon Bach throws the javelin, and he's just a sophomore. So we're going to watch him a lot this year. Patrick Malam, pole vaulter, just a sophomore again. Thaddeus Merton, sophomore again, will be involved in shot put and discus. So it'd be fun to watch those guys.
I should mention too, I don't know how accurate it was, but I was looking at a track and field website last year that tries to follow all of the athletes throughout the country. I think at one point Bach had like the number 2 or 3 throw for the year as a freshman in terms of the other freshmen around the country, one of the better ones there. So he'll be an interesting one to watch as he moves forward into his track and field career. So
and he's got a great coach in Coach Russ, because Coach he knows a little bit about the javelin.
I was going to say, I think he was a Pac-8 champion back in the day, back when he was at the University of Washington. And then we've got other sports as well. Obviously, girls tennis, always a fun one to watch. They've had teams historically over the years under Alberto Ramirez that have done very well.
If they can get some good weather.
Yeah,
They've been
it's-
practicing in the gym the last 2 weeks, and they want to get outside, so.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll get them
Cross our
out there and they
fingers
can
there.
have some girls that maybe will kind of rise from and bring them back to where we know they can be. A young team, though, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And then we've got 2 golf teams, boys and girls, both with new coaches this year.
Yeah.
So we'll see what they can do, and hopefully all these teams and athletes do well enough to where they keep you plenty busy for the next couple months. And Doug, we look forward to reading your articles. Again, mltnews.com. The soccer preview article is already posted.
Yeah.
Softball to come, and then plenty more coverage throughout.
Baseball's on the website now
That's
also.
right, too. I almost forgot, which
Yeah.
we talked to Coach Waters here a little while ago. So plenty of coverage from Doug. And again, you'll occasionally even venture on over to my Edmonds News and
I want to see.
today.
I want to see Linwood baseball. I want to see Meadowdale softball. I want to see Edmonds compete in both baseball and softball. Edmonds-Woodway track and field.
Yeah, some great athletes.
Great
Very
athletes
good
down
athletes,
there.
yeah.
So yeah. So all throughout South Snohomish County, we're going to see some great sports action this spring.
So check out those websites and look for Doug Petrowski's articles. Doug, thank you very much, and looking forward to reading you all throughout the month of March, April, May, and who knows, maybe into June a little.
Thank you.
Well, there's a lot going on in Mountlake Terrace sports, and the other sports, a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, spring sports are a time that we've seen a lot of success over the last few years from Edmonds School District teams and athletes. Quite a few of those athletes from last year were young, and they're back this year. So, when you start to look down the list, softball is where I immediately kind of focus my attention. I think we potentially have 4 teams that all could be very competitive this year. One of them already won a state championship at Meadowdale, and they bring back a lot of players. Mountlake Terrace, they're in a tough conference, but if they can make it out of there and get to the 2A, they've got a very good chance to compete at state. Edmonds-Woodway, Linwood, we've already talked about Maddie Morgan a little bit. If they can start surrounding her with some players, could be a really good year for softball. Baseball, same way. I mean, we just talked to Andrew Waters a few minutes ago, but we've got a Linwood baseball team with a couple potential superstars on their team with Whitman and McMahon. Edmonds-Woodway, you can say the same thing with Brandon Mitchell and Nick Hull, who both had outstanding years last year. And Meadowdale, just a very sound, well-rounded team. So baseball is going to be good. Track and field, a lot of great athletes coming back from last year. Runners, some of the distance runners in the area, boys and girls. And then we've got some great throwers. And golf and tennis, we don't really know who's going to kind of rise up above the rest and maybe be competitive this year, but this is always that fun time of year where somebody might surprise you that wasn't really on your radar as a sophomore or a junior, and all of a sudden they kind of come out of nowhere and rise through the ranks and get very competitive. So it's going to be a fun spring.
Yeah, well, I'm excited, and you should all be excited because we're going to be covering it for you and bringing it to you every week, and we look forward to seeing you next week with more on This Week in High School Sports.